This video will show you how to replace the driver's side rear emergency brake cable on a Chrysler Town Country. This will be located across the driver's side of your vehicle. Let's get into it. Okay friend, let's get started on our job. The first thing we have to do is safely raise and support the rear of the vehicle and remove the driver's side rear wheel. To remove the driver's side rear wheel, we'll be using a 19mm for each of our 5 lug nuts. Now that we have the wheel off, we have a clear view of our driver's side rear emergency brake cable. We're paying attention to where it connects to the caliper first. Let's start the removal process of our emergency brake cable at the caliper. Now in this area of the caliper, we do have a small hooked area that goes around the circular end here. We also have this area of the emergency brake cable. Now commonly this would actually have 3 locking tabs. Those tabs would need to be squeezed in so we can pull this cable out through this metal bracket. Looking at mine, it looks like 2 of my ears are actually damaged. Typically, you'd want to try to squeeze in on all 3 of those at the same time. This could be done with something as simple as an emergency brake cable release tool, or you could even just use some pliers if necessary. Now, since I only have 1 locking tab left on this, I'm just going to use a pry bar so I can press on that 1 tab. Mine is someplace right down here. While I'm pressing on that, I'm going to take hold of the cable and attempt to slide it out of the bracket. Now that I have this separated, I'm going to carefully try pulling my cable out through this small slot on the caliper itself. We'll have to keep pressure on this. Okay. Once you have it out of that bracket, we'll continue on to removing it from the hooked area at the end here on the caliper. You may find that you have to gently flex this. We're going to pivot it. Of course, a thorough inspection of the caliper here. We want to confirm there's no damage, otherwise we're going to have to replace this. This looks good. Let's pull the emergency brake cable out through this bracket. Now we can make our way along the side of the vehicle. So as we follow our cable forward, we have a mounting point here, 13mm bolt. Alright, so we have that bracket separated. Let's continue following that cable forward. So as we follow the cables, we want to be careful not to mix them up. The other cable does lead to the passenger side rear, so we're just following it. The driver's side is the one up along the top area. It goes up into this bracket here. Now to remove this portion, let's make our way along the forward side of this bracket. On the forward side of this bracket, as I mentioned, we're going for the upper cable. The lower one is for the passenger side. I'm replacing the driver's side. Now what I need to do is squeeze on the 2 locking ears. You can see one down where my index finger is here. The next one's going to be just above it. You can use some pliers if necessary, or just use that emergency brake cable tool as I mentioned before. We'll squeeze in on the 2 ears. We'll have to pull on the cable, pulling it out through the bracket. And then this portion of the cable will slide through this groove right here. So I have my tool. Pressing it on there as far as possible, squeezing in on my ears. Now I'm going to pull on the cable. Let's see if we can get this to release. If you find it does not want to release, you can carefully tap on it with a hammer if necessary. As you can tell, the cable is starting to come out. This is exactly what I want to see. Now we're focusing on the end of the emergency brake cable where it goes through this adapter. Now this adapter has our forward cable going through the center. It has the driver's side emergency brake cable and of course the passenger side emergency brake cable. We're only removing the driver's side, so I'm just going to spin this. Now as I start to rotate it, you can see that the cable will not come out through this area. It's protected by this small hooked end. We're going to flex this out of position. To do that, I'm going to use a couple pliers. I'll grab onto one end of this bracket. Now I'm going to grab onto this ear. I'll gently flex it so I can remove the cable from this area. Let's hold on to the 2 pieces here. We should be able to separate them. A thorough inspection of this bracket to confirm it is reusable. This doesn't look damaged in any way. Now we can finish removing that cable. Let's start removing the cable through this bracket here. There it is, friend. On our original emergency brake cable, we have to remove the bracket, which holds the emergency brake cable in place. We had dismounted the mounting bolt. Now, as far as this bracket, we want to spin it so you can see the small groove on the bracket itself. We're going to have to spread this so we can remove the cable from it. Now, I have this in a vise. You can also use some pliers if necessary. The vise is just going to hold this still for me. Now I'm just going to go inside that groove and I'll gently start spreading this so I can eventually pull the cable out of position. A thorough inspection of the bracket. Now let's transfer it over to the brand new cable. Let's prepare to attach that to the brand new cable. So now this would be the forward side of our cable. We're going to make our way all the way towards where the center of the cable would be. That's approximately where I want to have this. Now as I start flexing this bracket around the cable, I like to make sure that it's snug but still loose enough that the cable can move freely. For this, I'll be using some pliers. We essentially just want to make sure the cable cannot fall out of position. Let's give this a little spin, see if we have to make any quick adjustments to that bracket. It looks like I can go just a little bit tighter there. Perfect. Now let's get this over to the vehicle. So as we make our way back over to the vehicle with this, we're starting with the forward end. That's going to go through the bracket close to the fuel tank. We're sliding it all the way forward and we'll continue on up there. So as we bring the cable here, let's start with this portion of the cable. That's going to go up inside this metal bracket. Just slide it straight through the groove. I'm holding pressure. Of course, we're going to make sure we lock this in by flexing this. We can use some locking pliers and then of course peen this over. Locking pliers. Make sure we peen this over. Just make sure there's no way that cable can come out of there. So now as we bring the cable towards where this bracket area is, we do have a small groove for the cable to slide through, and then of course we're going to lock it in by pressing it forward. We want to make sure our locking ears are firmly grabbing on. You can see my ears. Now I'm pulling. That does not slide out of place. We'll just double check up along the front here. This looks like it's still in the proper placement. Of course, it will be a little bit more taut once we make our way towards the rear, so let's do that now. Let's bring the cable through this metal bracket. Now we're coming past this bracket all the way up to the hooked end. In this area, we need to make sure we put the emergency brake cable up and over the hook. Now we're going to pull on the emergency brake cable outer sheathing. As we pull it, we want this portion of the cable, the metal portion, to slide through that groove on the bracket, which is part of our caliper. Go ahead and give that a little tug. Now it can be a little challenging to pull on this and push it down into the proper positioning at the same time. Just be aware of any pinch points. We don't want anybody getting hurt. Let's see, I slid it through there. Now let's start securing this portion into the metal bracket attached to the caliper. If you find that this is going to be at the wrong angle, it's typically due to this metal bracket. The metal bracket can be adjusted by loosening this 18mm headed mounting bolt. Keep in mind, this bolt also holds the caliper in place. Once you have that loose, make your adjustment and then retighten this bolt and then torque it to the specifications. The torque for that would be 74 foot-pounds. Pressing that in all the way. I'm going to give it a tug. It does not slide out of place. Let's focus on attaching each one of our two emergency brake cable brackets. Now in my application, my mounting bolts did break, so I drilled a hole right next to it. I'm putting on the first emergency brake cable here. This is the one for the passenger side. Now I have the one for the driver's side. We have a mounting bolt that goes through the port on each of those two cable brackets. And now we'll bring it into here. On most applications, you would just take that mounting bolt, start it in by hand, and snug it up. Since mine is just a through hole, I'm pressing it in as far as possible. I'll have a mounting nut on the opposite side, and we'll make sure it's nice and tight. Double check to make sure the cable is properly secured so it does not get hung up on anything while we're driving down the road. Now, just one last quick inspection confirming everything is properly secured. We'll reinstall our wheel. As far as the wheel, once you have it in place, continue on to all 5 of your 19mm lug nuts. You're going to bottom them out. We'll get the wheel back on the ground. The torque for each lug nut will be 100 foot-pounds. So I have the wheel back on the ground, and now we're torquing those lug nuts to that 100 foot-pounds in a crisscross manner, just as I had mentioned. Torqued. Okay, friend, we finished the installation of our driver's side emergency brake cable. The next thing you need to do is test the functionality, confirming that your emergency brake holds and releases as it should. Aside from that, you can go ahead and take your vehicle for a road test. Thanks for watching.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.